I went to my top performing clients to see what they were doing that was helping them close more than everyone else. And then I looked at what they were doing on the sales side once the leads came in, and I compiled it into a big list, and I have it in this video for you today. So by the end of this video, if you watch all the way to the end, you will have an exact guideline for what you need to do to close more jobs from the leads you are gathering on Facebook or wherever your advertising source is. If you like this kind of content, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I make videos all the time. Let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing you need to understand, I know this sounds very, very basic, but you need to treat your lead like a human being, okay? I see a lot of people make this mistake where they have a lead come in and they look at it as a number on a dashboard. You need to stop looking at the lead as a number on a dashboard and start looking at them as a human being. Humans have emotions. They have things going on in their life. They have things that don't revolve around you. And when you start to treat them like a human being and understand how humans behave, then you can see a higher close rate when you speak to them. Because the thing is, this person has a life too, because human beings are busy. And so when you start to treat the human like a human being and you act like, oh, okay, they're busy. Oh, they just don't want to talk today. Oh, they forgot they filled out the form. It's not something against my marketing or something wrong with me. It's just that we got a crappy lead, okay? When you start to treat the lead like human beings, instead of treating them like a number or a potential opportunity for a sale, you close them more times than not. Especially too, when you have a conversation with a lead and you treat them like a human being, they're going to feel that energy that you're treating them less like a sale and more like a human, and they're going to be more receptive to purchasing. Now, the next one that we have is calling the lead within the first 5 minutes. If you cannot call your lead within 5 minutes of the lead coming in, then you need to improve your sales team or your sales system. Understand, marketing and sales has to be congruent with each other. If you cannot call your leads immediately, then you need someone who can. One of the biggest reasons that I've seen an advertising campaign fail for service businesses is that leads are not called within the first 5 minutes. If you are an owner-operator and you are running leads by yourself, then you need to be able to call them within the first 5 minutes. Even 30 minutes is fine. I don't even want to say that for the sake of the video, because realistically you need to call them in the first 5 minutes, but under no circumstance should a lead go 2 hours without being contacted with. Now, if you're an owner-operator and you don't have time to reach out, texts and emails are great too. You can always send them a text and email as soon as they come into your sales funnel. But regardless, they still need to have that human connection, and you need to get in touch with them. So I always say, regardless of if we send a text and email, if we have AI reach out to them, we need a human being to have a real conversation with them within the first 5 minutes of them coming in. The longer you wait to not call your lead, the more likely they're not going to close, right? So number 3, have high energy. You want to make sure that your energy is higher than the lead's energy every single time. So you need to get on the phone with high energy. If you come onto the phone with a casual energy, right? You have just like a very simple energy. You hop on the phone and you say, hey, is this John? Right? That energy can only be matched by the client. The client is not going to go above that. 9 times out of 10. The prospect is not going to go above your energy. So they're not going to go, oh, hey, yes, this is John. How can I help you? Most times they're going to stay just below you. So understand, your energy's here, they're going to be here. If your energy's here, they're going to come up here, right? So you don't have to come in and like yell at them and be all excited, but you can definitely have more of a, hey, is this John? You see how I kind of raise my voice at the end? I kind of sound a little excited. I sound like I'm interested in talking to them. Yes, John, this is great. I'm very excited to talk to you. I saw that you'd done this, you filled out this form. Let's have a conversation about that. You see how my energy is, it's high energy. I'm not, hey, John, this is Steven. I saw that you filled out a form on Facebook to work with us. Do you have a couple minutes? Right? I don't sound robotic. I have higher energy. You want to make sure you have high energy because, again, regardless, and this goes outside of calling as well, with anybody in life, psychologically, they're going to match your energy or usually be like right below it. Most people are not going to jump above your energy. So anywhere you go, whenever you're having a conversation with someone, try to keep your energy as high as possible because then their energy is going to match yours. You get what you give out of life. If you are always in a bad mood, if you always have low energy, everyone else is going to give you low energy too. You might be wondering, oh, my life sucks. Everyone's so mean to me. It's because your energy is low. So make your energy better and your prospects are more likely to engage with the conversation and actually close. Now, the next one is to act like a human being. These kind of go hand in hand. It is okay to stutter. It is okay to think about what you're going to say before you say it. It is okay to speak outside of the script. Every salesperson that I've ever consulted with that was having a really, really serious problem talking to leads was just reading the script like a robot. Hey, is this John? Hi, John. This is Steven with company. Do you have a couple seconds? The script is there to help you. You need to learn how to adopt the script into your brain, like understand, remember the script, and then be able to say it without looking at it. Breathe before you take a call. Smile before you take the call. Like, be excited. Be excited to take the call. Smile. Be ready to have a conversation with the lead and talk to them like a human being. Act like a human being. I know this sounds really simple, but a lot of people don't do this. They get very robotic when they're talking to leads. They get nervous. Just act like a human being. Now, for the next one, this is very important. Do not forget this. Diagnose the problem. Do not consult. Diagnose the problem. Do not consult. When you have a conversation with the lead filled out your form because they want to solve a problem. So your job as the SDR is to figure out the problem, and then you can use the problem that they're having to sell them the solution. What a lot of people do, I've made this mistake before too, is that instead of trying to diagnose the problem, we immediately go into consultation mode. Have you ever done that before? You ever just go into consultation mode? Instead of having that talk of, tell me what's going on, tell me how long you've had this problem for, how badly does it hurt, we're immediately going into consultation. So instead of figuring out the problem, it's, oh, let me tell you about what you should do to fix this problem. This might be the problem that you're having. Actually, maybe you should fix it. Or, and I would say with the consulting as well, selling your service. I have consulted and listened to a lot of calls where people are booking appointments, and the times where we got no-shows, the times where people weren't interested in talking to us, was the time where the owner or the salesperson just went on and on and on about how they could solve the problem for the company or how they could solve the problem for the client. They would go on and on and on about why they are the best and why their service was going to change that customer's life. You're consulting, you're blabbing about your service. They don't care about that. They have pain. Imagine if you went to the doctor with a broken leg and you said, my leg is broken, and the first thing that the doctor did was tell you about how great of a doctor he is, and then after that, he told you, oh, well, you should probably take some ibuprofen or something, or you should maybe get a surgery. And that was the conversation. I don't know, where's the leg hurting? If I need surgery, it could be hurting in multiple different places. It could be the hip, it could be the knee, right? Where is the pain? They have to find that out. And if the doctor doesn't figure out the pain, then we're not going to be able to solve the problem correctly. You have to diagnose the problem and not consult or brag about your service to the customer. So make sure you are diagnosing the problem, make sure you're asking questions and understanding why they filled out your lead form. The next one, your script is a guideline. So understand, when you are having a conversation on the phone, I said this before with the being human, you want to make sure that you are acting like a human, but also that your script is not being read word for word and that you are using it as a guideline. For example, with this video, I wrote your script is a guideline. This slide right here is a guideline for what I am going to talk about in this video. I didn't write down every single thing that I'm going to say. I just have a guideline, something to help me out. So you have to understand that, yes, following the script is important, but you don't have to say every word perfectly, especially if in this circumstance, we're just booking people for a consultation. If you're just booking people for a consultation or in-home inspection, all you need to do is figure out what the problem is and when you can get over there. If you can do that by asking the couple questions in the script and opening them properly, you shouldn't have any issue with this at all. You can try different openers out. You can say different things. You don't have to keep every single word for word exactly the same. I see a lot of starting out SDRs or new people to like running Facebook leads. I see people mess this up all the time. It's let me follow every single little word that I'm supposed to say. Sometimes I'll just make up stuff, and even when I make up stuff, I actually end up getting them on the phone or getting them booked for another call more times than not. One time I remember I called up somebody and I said, hey, are you ready for the greatest cold call of your entire life? With a lot of energy. I said, hey, is this John? They said, yes, this is John. I said, John, are you ready for the greatest cold call of your entire life? And he goes, what is this guy talking about? Right? I've even tried this before. You say, hey, is your middle name Lee? And they go, my middle name is not Lee. And I'm like, okay, well, I have this thing for you. And I immediately just go into the pitch. That person booked an appointment with me. If I would have just started with the pitch and didn't make up my own rules and have fun while I was making the calls, I would have had less fun. And that person might not have booked with me. So understand, you don't have to say everything exactly perfect, but you should still follow the framework. Now, the next one is to be curious/confused. You need to have curiosity. In fact, I've noticed actually the people that are dumber usually tend to close more. Like the less intellectual people tend to close more. I've had this conversation with some of my clients because a lot of us are very intellectual and we think about stuff too much. The dumb people close more. And so I was actually having this conversation with my client the other day. I just said, you should probably just say, what do you mean? Every single time they give you an objection. And that goes for everybody. Every single time you get an objection, you need to ask, what do you mean? The dumber people close more because they actually don't know why the customer is not closing. And so it's not a sales tactic. They just genuinely don't know. So when the client says, oh, I need to think about it, or I don't have time to talk about it right now, you go, well, what do you mean by that? Like it's a confusion, right? Or it's a curiosity. Like you genuinely don't understand what they mean. I don't have time to talk about it right now. What is that? You don't have time today? You don't have time this week? You don't have time this month? Like, what do you mean by that? So you just ask them, what do you mean? And let them tell you what they mean. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about is the puppy dog opener. I wrote this in quotes here, and this is kind of the confusion that goes with it. When I open leads from Facebook, I usually ask instead of state. A lot of people like to state. So they say, hey, this is John with ABC Contracting. You filled out a form on Facebook. How are you doing today? Right? So they stated, you did this thing. How are you? Or I saw that you were interested in getting this service. They state. I like to question because I actually have no clue. They might have filled out the form. They might not have filled out the form. Their cousin could have filled out the form. Their mom could have filled out the form. They could have accidentally clicked on something. I don't know. And so I almost treat it like I'm a little confused. So I'll pick up the phone and I'll say, hey, is this John? And they go, yeah, how can I help you? And then I say, did you fill out a form? This is Steven with ABC Contracting. Did you fill out a form about getting XYZ service today? Do I have that correct? Almost like I'm confused, like a confused dog. Like I'm looking, like I don't understand what's going on. And then they say, oh yeah, I did. And then I'll just immediately go into the thing. I'll say, oh, okay, well, do you have a couple seconds right now to talk about it? It was more inviting. You see how that was more inviting than me, like, hey, this is Steven with ABC Company. How's your day going? They're like, why are you calling me? Who are you? I started with just more of a, did you fill out this thing? I think I saw you filled out this form. Do I have that correct? And they say, oh, yeah, I did fill that out, right? They're selling themselves to you. So that's the kind of energy that I like to start with. But you always need to be curious and you need to be confused as to why they're not purchasing. Like really think about it. If you actually have a good service and they're not purchasing your service, then you should have a very hard time understanding why that person would not purchase. And so you can kind of have that same energy. What do you mean you don't have time right now? The next one, track your conversations. Always, always, always track your conversations. Track how many leads came in, how many people picked up the phone, how many of them didn't answer, how many of them booked an appointment, how many of them you had a positive conversation with, how many of them asked you to call you back, how many of them you closed. You need to track everything. I can't tell you what works until we track. And I can't put a dollar figure beside something until we track. Meaning, If we're not tracking stuff, I don't know how much it costs for us to have a cost, like our cost per picked up call, our cost per booked appointment, our cost per booked calendar, our cost per booked consultation, our cost per no answer. The more that I can divvy up these metrics and look at the numbers, at least your marketing team, right? If your marketing team can show you cost per picked up call, those numbers are important. You need to be able to see those things. You need to be able to track that stuff. You need to track the percentages of how many people are picking up the call. Because here's the thing. If I have 10 leads come in and 2 of them picked up the phone, or let's just say 5 of them picked up the phone, and 3 of them ended up booking appointments and 1 of them closed. If you don't know who booked an appointment, or more importantly, if the actual salesman doesn't tell the SDR who closed, and there's no sheet that shows where and why everything is happening, then if I go as the marketing guy to the sales team and say, or the SDR and say, how are the leads looking? And they say, oh, well, only a couple people picked up the phone and I booked an appointment or 2, but I don't think anyone closed. The marketing team goes, okay, well, the ads aren't working, let's change. At least a good marketing team. A good marketing team will go, oh, the ads aren't working, we need to make changes. If you would have tracked everything, we could see. We could see the percentage of people that are picking up the phone. We could see the percentage of people that are booking appointments. We can see who's closing. When you start tracking, and then we can put dollar figures and percentages behind those, we then know what we're spending our money on and what we might need to change in order to get better results. Next one is to record your conversations. So you need to have a recording in place for you to track every single call that you have with a prospect. You need to be able to listen back to your conversations, even just the phone calls, right? So you should be calling your leads inside of your CRM, and your CRM should have a way to record calls so that you know exactly how your conversations went and you can go over them afterwards, all right? The best football player, basketball players watch footage. They watch their footage from the previous games to see how they performed. You want to see how you are performing, all right? You might not realize this, and I've had this happen before. I've listened in on conversations live. These people didn't realize it, but they were rambling on about their service or a service that the customer didn't even ask for. They had scared away the customer by maybe giving a price too early. They didn't diagnose the problem. Instead, they consulted with the customer. There's plenty of reasons why maybe your sales call or your sales conversation did not go well. And this is why it's important to record this stuff so that you can always look back at it and see what you need to change. There's things that you wouldn't pick up in the initial conversation, in the live conversation, that you are going to pick up by re-watching your calls. So make sure you record every single one of your calls. And then for the last one, you want to make sure that you follow up. And then you're going to follow up until they buy, die, or unsubscribe. Always, always, always follow up with your leads. So many people don't ever do this. Like, it is insane to me the amount of times I have seen people lose lots of money on advertising, and the number one reason that they lost money on advertising was because they never followed up with the lead. They never called the lead again. They never texted the lead again. They maybe had one conversation with them and then never called them back, or they didn't pick up the phone, so they thought, oh, it's a dead lead, and just moved on to the next one. Understand, these are human beings. They need to be reminded of stuff. Follow up until they buy, die, or unsubscribe. Okay, so until they either purchase your service, pass away, or they message stop to your text messages or unsubscribe to your emails, this person needs to get contacted with. The winners are the ones that are going to go out of their way to continue contacting leads until they purchase. In fact, the 1% of earners in any niche are the people that call their leads at least once a quarter and send out at least one email a week of value to their lead list. If you can do that, you're going to have a higher likelihood of keeping leads around. You always want to follow up. If you would like to see exactly how to improve your follow-up and the follow-up strategy that we use to increase our close rate for our clients, click this video right here.